And so there's sort of where does all of this context that the AI models work with, on what side of that privacy line do we want it? Right now, it's on the wrong side for me, but I can see how it can get to the right side.
A real example that my wife's a doctor, so we were talking about this with friends of ours yesterday, and they're from Germany, and they were saying, you know what, if he goes to one doctor and he gets his blood taken, there's not a central system where if he goes to another city and there's an emergency that people can access. And I'm going to tell you, in the sense of government efficiency, one of the big challenges is one of the big bills that we have to pay is health insurance. I believe it's a human right, and I'll stand by that. I've been in Europe for way too long to believe anything else. And it's doable, but there's a huge amount of efficiency that comes in there. And the problem is they don't have these central systems. There needs to be that level of transparency. That would be an example where AI could be a huge help, that we have, that doctors, you can go to a doctor anywhere in the country, or maybe even outside the country, and still get, they'll look up your history and stuff like that. And maybe even from a preventative perspective. I'll allow you to plead the fifth on this one if you want to, because I know that you're nonpartisan or you don't want to get involved in politics. One of the topics that keeps coming up in Europe as well is, and I think it's also an issue in the United States, I don't think it's an issue during this term, but I think there's going to be a big shift coming soon, and the pendulum is going to swing in the other direction. There is some discussion whether or not AI is such an essential system for humanity, whether it should be in private hands or whether it should be in government hands. You want to plead the fifth, or you want to make some kind of statement there?
It's a tough one. So I know that there's some legislation that's been discussed or publicized just recently about the public or the government in some sort of form having ownership of the large AI labs, etc. So I appreciate the concept, that this is something that is big enough that maybe we should have ownership. I think that there's a couple things going on. One is I really don't know how you define it.
Yeah. It's a huge gray area.
It's a real gray area.
Yeah.
So not to poke at my friend John, but you think about Latimer, it is an AI system that you experience. The foundation model underneath it is something that comes from somebody else. He is built on top of it as a service that actually is then deployed to the public and including lots and lots of students. Is that something that the public should own, or is that something that the public shouldn't own? And I don't know where, because it gets really messy. When it's a software system, think about, Notion or Zoom even, that we're sitting here on, pops up and there's a little thing that transcribes and it's using one of these language models behind the scenes. Is that, where's the level that you cut it? And I think that I worry that actually we just get bogged down in that difference.
It would kind of require a higher level of understanding on a government side if they would take that responsibility. And I think we're far away from that.
So I find that, but then I find myself thinking, these are companies that are becoming extraordinarily wealthy and individuals that are just off the charts wealthy based off of the backs of things that we all created and we allowed the world to see. And so there's something fundamentally unfair that I think is real. I mean, everything we've ever written, Helen and I have ever written, got absorbed. Recently, we've actually put a lot of our most important work behind a registration wall. It's free. We are a nonprofit, but you have to actually register with us. By the way, if you do that, you can turn off your emails. That's okay. And we're not trying to hoover that up. We're actually just trying to make it that our most important work is for human eyes only, not for machine eyes, if you will. So we think about that unfairness. I think that if these large companies are driving towards labor replacement, and actually they still have these ideas that they're going to put large percentage of the population, whether it's in our country or other countries, there's another thing that we don't really talk about is all of the impact on the outsourced world that has actually, does a lot of labor for countries in North America and in Europe. They're all losing a lot of employment too. But wherever that employment is getting replaced, that becomes a really significant issue for governments and regulators. I don't have a good answer, but it's certainly not something that we should
I would
ignore.
maybe add a sentiment. I agree with you. I don't think that we have the capability. Government doesn't have the capability to keep from a cognitive perspective to keep a handle on it. I think it would be beyond the scope of their thing. But I do believe, I'm a big fan of a book called Germs, Guns, and Steel, or in some order of that, where there's a quote, there's one paragraph, and that made me smile when I read it. And they said, the function of government is to be the biggest, baddest gang in the country. Okay, so if you have to pay protection money with tax money, right? It's the government. Is the government serving the people, or is it serving corporations? And I have a very distinct opinion on that. I think I don't think governments should necessarily own it, but I think all companies should be subservient when it comes down to it. Okay,
yes.
The biggest, baddest person in should be the government, and they should represent the people and not private interests.
And I'll add to that, which is I think that in the idea that if people are thinking about the role of government here, and if there's people in governments that are, listening to this, I would encourage them to spend some time with the work of Jeff Mulgan, who is a prof at University College London, Sir Jeff Mulgan, who's a friend of ours. He does brilliant work on helping people imagine new institutions. So just as we think about how our current institutions and our current governments should be responding to AI, I think we have to ask how those institutions might need to change and evolve themselves in order to handle the new realities. And I think that Jeff does a fantastic, as someone who's spent time inside the UK government, right? So he's not an anti-government person. He's how do we reimagine institutions to be able to handle new realities? There's a lot of really interesting work and writing that he's done. So if you're interested in that sort of positive solution,
I'm going to piggyback off that, just like I piggybacked off Helen. Would you put in a good word to him for me?
Sure,
I would love to have him on.
Of course.
Exactly, on that topic.
He's fantastic. He is a dynamic speaker. We've had him on. He came out to our summit in Oregon
I'm
last year.
hoping to come out sometime. I don't know whether I managed it this year, but sometime
we're hoping that Jeff will come back again this year as well, to be able to help keep that idea rolling along. And we will, by the way, hopefully by the time this comes out, I'll finally get the video of his talk up on our YouTube channel.
Good.
So people can listen and get a sense of the the kind of vision that he can paint.
Yeah. I have to look out for your time. I have two, and we've gone a little bit off script, but I think we're still good.
Hope so.
I definitely feel so.